I am Babla Jonathan. In this edition of the program, the first for 2020, we're going to be discussing arbitrary arrest and detention of citizens in the Republic of Cameroon. According to Human Rights Watch, Cameroon has a poor record of arbitrary arrest and detention of citizens. There are many who have been arrested within the context of the deepening Anglophone crisis. According to lawyers, they have been arrested illegally and are being detained illegally. Many of them are being detained incommunicado. We'll be talking about that with one of the victims in this edition of the Inside. We'll also talk about what is known today as the Let My People Go option as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned. And we'll also talk about the February 9 municipal and legislative elections in the Republic of Cameroon, and of course the form of the state, which is at the center of the 3-year-long crisis in Cameroon. Stay with us and meet our guest in some few seconds. Our guest in this edition of The Inside is a very outspoken activist. He is one of the victims of what lawyers qualify as arbitrary arrest and detention of civilians in the Republic of Cameroon. He's a Muslim scholar of the Christian Bible. ABDULKARIM Ali, you welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Mr. Babel.
You were arrested. Other people said you were abducted sometime last year, September, and detained in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, and later released. We want to know from you what happened. How, where were you arrested?
All right, okay. Permit me begin by praising God and asking Him to send His blessings upon His prophets, last of whom is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, righteous men and women who've lived, to yourself, to the televiewers of Équinoxe Tv, particularly this program, The Inside, and permit me offer some prayer. As you may know, massacre occurred and is occurring, especially last 2 days, the 14th. Let's pray for Southern Cameroonians who've lost mothers, children, brothers and sisters. Let's pray that those who are dead find solace with God and His mercy. Amen. So, coming to your question, like you earlier said, that some people will qualify it abduction. Anybody who would call it any other thing but abduction needs to read again what arrest is all about. It's actually abduction, that one. Arrest follows a procedure. There is, of course, the warrant of the arrest presented, and then, of course, if you refuse to obey the invitation by the authority, then now you're being taken, unless you're caught in a crime that needs immediate intervention, which wasn't the case with me, but mine was a clear case of abduction. So you asked what happened?
Yes, what actually happened? How did the people or the forces of law and order pick you up?
Yeah, sure. Upon return from a meeting in Switzerland, Montreux precisely, I was expected to have a meeting with the Swiss ambassador, because I went on pretty much official business on their part, because we were meeting with part of Swiss government officials, and of course an NGO which is involved in peace building and negotiations, called the Humanitarian Center for Dialogue. So that meeting was held in my presence, and I was expected to have an exchange with him upon return. Yeah, so I went to Yaoundé, and upon exit from the Swiss embassy, a guy approached me in an assaulted way and told me to go and enter a gendarmerie vehicle, speaking in French and pointing at the vehicle. So I told him, what did I do and where are we going? So he didn't respond to me. Rather, he said in French, venez, venez. He was inviting 2 other gendarmerie officers in the uniform now. So they came and stood left and right. He asked them to watch over me. He went now and brought the vehicle. So he said, I should enter the vehicle now with a stronger tone. I told him, all right, okay, are you arresting me? He didn't respond. I said, if you're arresting me, read my rights at least. He didn't respond. So they gathered me, the 2 guys, forcefully, pushed me in the vehicle. And I begged them that, please, they should not brutalize me. I'm ready to enter the vehicle. So the onlookers asked him, So where are you taking this man? He told a lie that he was taking me to Gendarmerie Bastos. But I ended up at SED, the place they call SED. It was my first time discovering that. So that is what happened. That is.
Were you brutalized at any point in time?
No.
Verbally?
Yeah, verbally, pretty much. Yeah, there was verbal assault, but nothing physical.
All right. Did they tell you anything from where they arrested you to the State Defense Secretariat?
Yeah, to that said, right? Yes. No, it was at said that a lieutenant came and asked me a few questions initially. What the hell are you doing in Yaoundé? That's how I can put it. Tu fais même quoi à Yaoundé? You know. Yeah, supposedly I'm not supposed to be in Yaoundé. It is their area, by the way. So I explained to him why I was in Yaoundé. So they took my laptop, took my phone, and it was time for prayer, 3:30 prayer. So I begged them for space. They offered me space. I prayed. And then, like, from 7 p.m., there was, I wouldn't call it an interrogation then, but there was a conversation between myself and him, asking me a few things, asked me to open my phone and my laptop, which I did. He saw gadgets that were given me at the meeting in Switzerland and asked me, what are you doing with this? I explained to him I'm from a meeting and everybody was giving these gadgets that I have and blah, blah, blah. So like 9 p.m., they took me now from where they were having the interview to the dungeon.
The gadgets, what were they? Cameras? Or
no, just documents from HD and some CDs about peace, that's all.
Right, up till now, they had not told you why you are being detained.
No, they did. 4 days after,
I mean to the time you had that exchange with
No, I wasn't charged yet.
All right. And between this time, the time when you were arrested to when you were interrogated at the State Defense Secretariat, was there any presentation of an arrest warrant or anything, any document?
Never, not even till I left 38 days later. That one was not produced. So this is why it is an abduction. This is why it is called arbitrary.
And the among the many organizations and individuals who called for your release, there was Human Rights Watch called for your release, indicating that Cameroon has a poor record of arbitrary arrest and detention of citizens.
Yeah. Cameroon is actually a human right abuser. They do it with impunity. So that is correct. We have about 1,600 Southern Cameroonians in dungeons, including the leadership, of course. You know how they got here. These were people under asylum. Some have already obtained it, some have applied, and they had a resident permit in Nigeria. They were abducted overnight and brought back here. So yeah, Cameroon has a clear record for anyone who can see. Human Rights Watch is correct in that regard. Don't forget, even journalists, including your colleagues, have met that. Even lawyers, those who explain to us the constitution of a country, have been visited with such audacity. So it is true. Human Rights Watch is correct if they make that argument.
Even though government would always reject such reports, such information coming from those organizations, saying that Cameroon is a state of law, it's a country that respects national and international laws. Within the close to 40 days, for the close to 40 days that you were in detention, what was happening within these days? What was happening?
Yeah, talking about state of law. By the way, any law that is being passed under injustice cannot have any respect in itself. It's a species of violence. And if somebody will breach that and they are being punished because they breached such a law that was produced under injustice, the people punishing them are doing violence. Just to correct that, Cameroon is not a state of law. Perhaps on paper, but we can see is there. All you need to do is take a look and you realize there is no law being practiced here. It's jungle law, perhaps.
That's however the position of the authorities, and like everyone will understand, they will not say the contrary, that Cameroon is a state of law where the laws have been respected.
Yeah, in academia and in civilized manner, you don't just say things, you don't reject things, you don't just say things, you don't put it on the table, you argue them. So can the government argue that they are a state of law? Can they come and argue? Can the representative come to a table of debate and defend such position? They can't. Other countries will come and defend it. If they can defend this position, let's try and see how well they do. Yeah, so that was on the 23rd. Yes, on the 25th, sorry. That was the day I was abducted. So 4 days later, and that was a Wednesday, I think. So 4 days later, that's on Saturday, the investigator called me. This was the first time he now told me what I did. The charges were, according to what he read me, sponsor of terrorism, inciter of violence. I'm trying to translate because the thing was in French, everything. He was speaking French and the document was in French and I didn't have a lawyer then. Apologies for terrorists and then terrorism. So I sponsor it, I apologize for it, I incite people onto violence, and then above all I'm a terrorist. Such a contradictory way of charging persons. So, but this was Saturday. On Monday, the lawyers have now forced themselves, and thanks to prayers and of course push from Southern Cameroonians left and right, now lawyers were able to access me. And then they confessed to me, the lawyers and also the investigator accepted that they were there on Friday. I was picked on Wednesday. They were there on Friday, and the guys there refused that I wasn't there. Lie. They came back on Saturday. They insisted. It's only on Monday that they were allowed to see me. And that same Monday, we went to their military court. They took me to the military court. I spent like 8 hours waiting without food, and then I only prayed out there. And then the magistrate came, saw me for 2 seconds. Are you ABDULKARIM? Yes. Where were you caught? I said I wasn't caught, sir. I wasn't running. Where were you arrested? I said neither was I arrested. I was abducted. Where? I said in front of the Swiss embassy. Going or coming? I said coming. He said, okay, go back to the gendarmerie. Your case is still being studied. So that is it. Went back. I had just a t-shirt and my trouser. Mosquitoes. No food. No water. On Monday, because the first 3 days, I told them I'm not going to eat your food until I know why I'm here. So I didn't eat. But on that Monday, the lawyers, they brought me Barrister Ayukuta. He brought me water, a pallet of water, some apples, and cake. They refused it. He came back the next day, they rejected it. And then they brought some dirty food and passed it under the door. I told them, look, you cannot refuse me water, which is life and my rights, and you expect me to eat from you after abducting me for no reason. So then that is the moment I decided to go on hunger strike. So I took
a hunger strike,
fasting here for 15 days until I had the first visit from family, when I ate and then changed clothes.
What can possibly explain? You're not a lawyer, but you have a mastery of some of these issues. What can possibly explain the incommunicado detention of somebody for days and nobody is granted access to him? People come to visit him. They are sent away. They are told that you are not there, like you said, and so on. What can possibly explain this?
Like you said, I'm not a lawyer, so this would be very difficult for me to explain from a legal perspective. But let's use common knowledge. We need to understand the context in which we find ourselves. President Biya admitted that they have tried to recolonize and assimilate Southern Cameroonians for 38 years altogether, and it has failed because of their identity. I'm quoting him. That's what he said.
At the Paris Peace Forum.
At the Paris Peace Forum in front of Mo Ibrahim. He admitted that. So that is the context. And they are trying to defend that till date. So what would they do with people who try to oppose their stance? They will do everything an oppressor does. They will arbitrarily arrest you. They will keep you incommunicado. They will keep you away from the world, because soon as the world knows that you are there illegally, they want to know why. So they will play with time. Sometimes, it didn't happen with me, but we know other comrades who have been into that trap. Sometimes they keep you incommunicado because they are embarrassed. Another time because they are trying to bribe you, buy you out, or torture you. So those 3 reasons could explain. Perhaps lawyers could be able to dig through, but we've noticed that either they're trying to buy you, they want to torture you, or they're embarrassed.
Somebody told me that sometimes they are also looking for charges. They are looking for charges to press against you when they are keeping. That's an ex-detainee, somebody who was in the same situation like you. He told me, but there was nothing that they could lay against him, so they had to take time to look for charges. I said, but how can you arrest somebody and then you start looking for charges?
Yeah, actually that's after the fact justification, and that's why I say embarrassed, because for you to arrest someone you should have a reason. So they arrest you with no reason except for the fact that you are who you are. And actually this is tying in with what is happening in Gabu there, or at Tumbo in Dongamantung County, is genocide by definition.
We'll come to that in a short while. We'll come to that in a short while. Let's talk about the charges. ABDULKARIM Ali, a terrorist? Are you a terrorist?
Well, let's define the words, and then we can know who a terrorist is. Basically, a terrorist is someone who brings fear. But in the context of a state, a terrorist is ever the person who wants to upset a government and harms the innocent people. Now, if you define it like that, then ABDULKARIM Ali is not. But someone like Obama Enes fits for that definition. He fits very well, but he's a free man. The governors under whose supervision people are being killed every day, they fit for that definition. But if at the same time terrorism means defending your rights, standing for truth and justice, if that is what it means, then I'm a terrorist. If that is what it means, but I know that is not what they imply. By saying terrorism in their context, they mean an act of violence against the state, but I don't do violence.
In the first definition, just to clear the air on this issue, you said that in the first definition, somebody like Enes Obama, who is a journalist with Vision Card Television, recently chased by some militants of the anti-Sardina brigade in Paris and so on, that in the first definition you will be considered as a terrorist. Why should
all right, when the Southern Cameroon problems escalated in 2016, he is the first journalist who came on air to call all Southern Cameroonians rats, number one. Secondly, he's the first journalist to say that the government of La République du Cameroon is playing with Southern Cameroonians. That's why they are still doing this nonsense. They should bring in the military and kill who they have to kill. It's been recorded. That is someone who promotes violence. But I just brought him as an example. Of course, you have Okala Bilai, who called all of us dogs. That is in 2017. That is what qualifies people to be terrorists. But none of them are charged. None of them are arrested. None of them are even having a decent conversation on the matter. But people who stand for justice are dead, incarcerated, and being tortured in dungeons. So you see, it's funny, and thank God that the world is waking up to the realities in Cameroon. Just like you mentioned, Human Rights Watch is up now on their toes, and they can see for themselves.
Now, talking about ABDULKARIM Ali, when they said that you are a terrorist, you're promoting violence, you're promoting terrorism, and so on, when you look at some of your very tough stance as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned, very rigid stance, sometimes in favor of one thing or the other, in favor of the struggle, I want to call it that way, the struggle for, the restoration of the statehood of Southern Cameroons. I'm not talking about secession, I'm talking about the statehood of Southern Cameroons, as was the case in the 1960s in the federal system and so on. Don't you think that there is something somewhere that has to do with terrorism? Did you find something somewhere in your statements, your outings, that had to do with terrorism, violence, and things like that?
No, I don't find any. And if they found one, they wouldn't have released me, by the way. It's because they can't find any. Now, I'll just correct that. Southern Cameroons are not looking forward to reinstating the federal relationship, which was, by the way, illegal, because there's no treaty union binding that federation. They are not trying to do that. And what people must understand, I was going to say this later, but let me say it now. We are not even asking the United Nations to give us independence. Neither are we asking Britain. Resolution 1608 and Resolution 1514 of the 21st of April 1961 settled that. That one has been settled. What we are even asking the United Nations and Britain is to come and rectify the injustice, the game they played, the cards they turned left and right on those resolutions. These are resolutions that were voted and passed. Resolution 1608 passed for us, 64 against 23. So yeah, in this context, I've stood for justice for the people of Southern Cameroon. I have said unapologetically, unequivocally, that the only thing that Southern Cameroons require is justice. If by saying that it implies terrorism, come on. Look, the whole of Africa, they borrowed what they call civilization and democracy from the West. The West got democracy. Democracy is an outbirth of something called naturalism and liberalism. Human rights, which is one of the things being talked about today in the world so much, is a birth child of liberalism. Liberalism is a product of revolution. So we are under it. So the West, they know about revolutions. All immigrants are products of revolution. All civilizations came because of revolution. Revolution is the difference between the past and the future. It is there in the middle. So, and this is where we find ourselves. This is why, Mr. Babila, the West, the word terrorism was first of all defined by Jacobin, under the Jacobin regime in France. They know about the word terrorism more than us. They understand it more. That is why, till today, they have not called a single Southern Cameroonian a terrorist. Because they know we are not terrorists. If there is a terrorist...
Even though the authorities have been referring to the pro-independence fighters as terrorists.
Oh no, you can say that, but it seems the change.
Authorities.
Yeah, it seems the change. I've not heard those words lately. From terrorists and...
The last came from the divisional officer of Kumba 1, I think so.
Yeah, but the president of La République du Cameroon was softer. Yeah, so and again, this is what we are saying. I was ready to appear in their courts. I was ready to define terrorism. And I was ready to bring examples in the system of La République du Cameroon. And my humble self, let's see who is a terrorist. Comrade Tapang Ivo has been dragged to the court by one half-baked lawyer called Salai in the US for charges of terrorism. All the counts have been dismissed by qualified and just authorities. This is a lesson for anyone who cares to know what definitions and legality of words mean. So my works are there on Facebook, and I have nothing to do on the ground. I come to TV, invited upon by you and other journalists. I present my ideas on TV. Mr. Babila, you cannot kill an idea with a gun or with the jails.
You can kill people, but not...
Yes, you can argue it. This is why we come to TV. But if you brought them here, what they will do is shout, throw ad hominems and strawman. You won't get substance. So all the claims we make, let us debate it. And this is why we talk about negotiations. Because it's a process that would involve debates and then, of course, negotiation at the end of the day when results come.
All right, what happened before you were released? How were you released? They just came one day and said, okay, ABDULKARIM Ali, go home?
Yeah, they took me for interrogations, asking me questions in the presence of my lawyer, and a girl translates the questions to me. I give my answer in English, she translates back to him, and he types in French in the presence of my lawyer. So they had the set 26 question. They asked about 7 or 8. No, they asked about 15. And yeah, the answers were so heavy for them to swallow. The lawyers have the answers. It was so heavy for them to swallow, they stopped it halfway. So on the 38th day, like you said, they just came and said, come out. And, so I'll take again the opportunity here to thank the Swiss ambassador, the American ambassador, the British High Commissioner. Yeah, they did a lot of hard work in trying to, defend my innocence. And of course, you, the journalists, Southern Cameroonians who pray to Muslims all over the world, the Pope himself, the Imams of Saudi Arabia. So all of this, the truth is, if there was anything on me, they wouldn't have freed me.
All right. There is something now that is heard here and there, and that thing is called "Let my people go." We are hearing something like that here and there from some lawyers, some Cameroonians. Let my people go. And somebody like Barrister Akuyatze Joseph, one of the lawyers of Sisiku, and the others, says the UN should come in, organize a referendum, and if the people say we don't want to be part of this country anymore, they should be let go. What do you think about that?
Let my people go. Of course, yeah. That statement was printed at the heart of my being, in the fiber of my essence, on the 17th of January 2017, the day Barrister Bala, Dr. Fontaine were caught. That day, federalism that brought the two Cameroons together was tortured and killed, in my understanding. So the only thing left was what now people are saying, let my people go. I agree with that. But for this lawyer, what is it?
Barrister Akuyatze Joseph.
Barrister Akuy. I think we need to change this way of approaching our case. What referendum? Look, in 1959, our parents sat in Manfi. There was a referendum. 22nd of September 2017, there was a referendum. And lately, the early days of February, especially the 9th, gave a clerical referendum. The United Nations Resolution 1608 must and is the only thing we should be talking about. We need to know if this vote came in favor of Southern Cameroon or not. Look, and what breaks my heart is that lawyers are the ones, asking the United Nations to come and do this referendum, as though they don't know the history of Southern Cameroon and La Republic of Cameroon. In my opinion, what referendum really and truly? So, but if that be the case, if the people say they want referendum, I believe in real democracy, what the people want. If that is what the people want, the Southern Cameroonians, not Anglophones as you put it, Mr. Babila, because Anglophones, Americans are Anglophones, I hope you know that. Because, original
Anglophone Cameroonians.
Yeah, original Americans are the Indians. So the immigrants, they adopt the colonizers' language, which is English. But when you're referring to a context like this one, you need to refer to the indigenous people. Because Anglophone, by and large, the word Anglophone is tied to a linguistic value. It has just a linguistic connotation. And we are not here because of a linguistic problem. And there are many Anglophones who are not Southern Cameroonians. There are many people who were born there who can adopt the culture of an Anglophone, but they are not bona fide Southern Cameroonians. So again, this is why we say that the Anglophones and their Southern Cameroonians, there are even some Southern Cameroonians who have converted into Anglophones. So these are long topics we can elaborate on a different occasion.
All right. So according to ABDULKARIM Ali, the let my people go option can be a solution to the current problem.
It is. I think it is the only solution, Mr. Babila. I said the 17th of January 2017 provided this option as the only option. There are no two options. The first thing to happen is let the people go, and then you can talk whatever you have to talk. You can't tie them, beat them, kill them, and expect them not to cry. It doesn't work that way. You must release them. You have to let that child. Let the child run off into the bush and cry his mercy. You can't beat him and hold him at the same time. It won't work.
And talking about the killings, corpses are still seen by Cameroonians or English-speaking Cameroonians everywhere around the two regions. Somebody was telling me yesterday of corpses in the southwest on the Kumbaboya Road, corpses just everywhere, here and there and so on. And one of the deadliest incidents occurred recently. One of the deadliest incidents since 2020 occurred in Gabu in the Ndonga Mantum division, where men, women and children were killed. When you look at this incident, what's your take about the current the way things are evolving, the way things are moving. We are hearing here and there that things are moving gradually towards normalcy and so on, and then we still have such incidents occurring.
It is really not easy. You know, when they speak of normalcy, they simply mean that they want to have their elections, they want to have their bank votes, they want to have their money. They don't care about these people called Southern Cameroonians. You said people have been dying in the Southern Zone and the Northern Zone and so on. And you mentioned some of the sex and some of the status of these people, small children, those that were sick. And you forgot to mention pregnant women.
Pregnant women, of course.
These people were burnt. But what should be noted is that this, to me, this is the climax. And I pray that the international community intercepts this situation right now for us not to see the worst. This is the climax, but this thing has been ongoing from 1961. La République du Cameroon had a program called the Ibubu program. It had to do with the same massacre that we're talking about. Of course, we also don't forget the 1966 Tombel here, the Witness massacre. That was Tombel is 1997. Don't forget what happened upon the introduction of SDF. Don't forget 2008. Don't forget even in 1961 what they call Kale Kale. Don't forget 2008, 2012, and of course from 8th of December 2016 Akum Julius. Don't forget what happened in Menka, what has been happening in Bambidakwe. Everywhere, massacre. Is this a guesswork? No, it is there for people to see. And the United Nations officials are trying to access the field to get first-hand information, and we hear they are being stopped. So it is really sad. There is no normalcy. There can't be normalcy. Not when more than 15,000 people are said to be dead. The United Nations reports in between 3,000 to 12,000. But we have empty villages which cannot be accounted for. So we say more than 15,000, and the burden of proof is on the government to produce life. We have mass graves everywhere. Not when more than 1,600 people are scattered in jail, some are dying. Every day, Mr. Babila, I have a call from children in prisons who cannot eat, who have wounds that are getting rotten. And some are being held, prisoners being held by government hospital because they didn't pay bills. I have the text sent me. We need to struggle and send these bills so that people can go back to prison. Not when our daughters have become prostitutes and laborers because of internally displaced situation. Thousands of them, hundreds of thousands in the refugee camp, and our brothers and sisters all together, their parents die, they can't come back to bury them because if they come back they'll be arrested. And you're talking about normalcy? The only thing that can happen is justice. The only thing that will bring back normalcy is justice. And I find a simple way that has been ushered in for justice. The international community are trying to bring the two parties onto the table to discuss and find a way out of the situation, and the government is running away from that.
Why is government running away?
That question should go to them.
The interest of the government is at stake?
I don't know. That question should go to them, but we are waiting for them. They would run away, but we are waiting for them because, in my opinion, that is the only place things like this are being settled. Do not forget, again, because there's no union treaty in this whole business, the only place to settle this again is on the table. Don't forget what happened. For example, look at America. All the 13 counties that make America signed before they entered that federation. But look at USSR, Russia. Because there was no treaty, their union collapsed. Yugoslavia, no treaty. What happened? Bosnia, Croatia, and Montenegro, they went apart. Most recently, what happened to Ethiopia and Eritrea? Since there's no treaty, it collapsed. Where did it collapse? On a table. How does this government think they are going to escape a table on this case?
All right, coming back to the recent incident in Ndonga Mantum Division, the United Nations, the head of the United Nations Organization for Humanitarian Affairs in the Northwest region has called for a deep investigation into the matter. For now, there are accusing fingers pointing towards the military, and government has said nothing so far. No official statement has been made, and our correspondent on the ground indicates that no government authority has gone there to take stock of the situation, to have information, first-hand information on what actually happened there. But when we look at what happened there and the accusations on the military and so on, and the silence of the government, is there some sort of complicity or understanding between the perpetrators and the government, or government is still doing investigations?
No, thank you. And I'm happy you raised the fact that they have not gone there. You're the one telling me, which is good to know. They have not gone there. But don't forget, Lala Africa took an helicopter, a chopper, foiled it on the 9th to go and greet Ngala Gerard because he was being voted. But these are people dying, little children, minors are being killed. They have not even gone to say what has happened. So it goes without saying that people who act like that are the authors of what is happening. And this is not me saying it. Denizens on the ground, eyewitness, multi-attestation to the case has been that the military did it. And we are hearing today from sources, many sources, that this government has paramilitary and of course so-called vigilantes that operate for them. This is, if you go online, you see all of these things. It's well, and it is no surprise to me. Yeah, the government won't go to investigate what they did.
All right. Before we continue, ABDULKARIM Ali, I want us to take a listen to this heated exchange between Maurice Kamto, national president of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement political party, and an indigene of Mancon in the northwest region of the country in Ontario, Canada. Take a listen.
Thank you so much, President Kamto. Thank you for the hard work that you've done, for the bullets that you've taken for all Cameroonians. I'm Paul Tima, I'm from Mancon, Bamenda. I'm a very proud Anglophone, and like you, I'm very touched by this issue of the Anglophone crisis. I want to highlight that I'm not a militant of the MRC, but I'm a big sympathizer. I buy the vision of the party. But I have a problem with your position. I appreciate the fact that you stand for the federal system of government. I am a moderate. I align with somebody like Barrister Abuonkomo. But you seem to have issues with the 1961 federal system. And I personally, my knowledge, what I've learned, my circle of friends, a lot of Anglophones who identify themselves as moderates will not accept anything less than a two-state federal system. You said you would discuss with them, but your position seems to be tilted towards a 4 or 6 state. What if Cameroonians or Anglophones come on the table and say, Kamto, we need just a two-state federation?
Thank you very much, sir, for your testimony and your question. Thank you very much, because you give me the opportunity to come back to the issue and explain exactly our own position. The question is, let us assume that we go back to 1961 federalism, two-state federalism or federation. Okay? After having done so, will the Anglophones or the English-speaking state composed of Northwest and Southwest, will it be able to oppose the other part of Cameroon to organize itself as a federal state? That is the question. That's why my point is that I start with dialogue, negotiation, or whatsoever, call it what you want to call it. Dialogue with Anglophones. We agree on the federal system, the content they want to see in the federal system. Once we have done so, then I see how feasible is it to expand it to the rest of the country. That's my methodology. It's not that I will call all Cameroonians to come around the table and discuss the same content, because I clearly said that I acknowledge the fact that the English speaking Cameroonians were the first to rise up and...
Professor Maurice Kamto, National President of the CRM political party, speaking there in Ontario, answering a question from an indigene of Mankon in the northwest region of Cameroon. ABDULKARIM Ali, what do you think about Professor Maurice Kamto's methodology as far as the form of the state is concerned?
Well, I think Mr. Kamto did some diminishing career-ending embarrassing statement back then in Canada. This man is a scholar of civil law, and I trust the fact that he knows some Cameroon history. But I'm surprised at the hypocrisy that he's trying not even to spin the history, but trying to kill the history. I wouldn't blame him. When you have people like that who define themselves as Anglophones and go to ask for things always, they want to be given. Why must it be like Republic of Cameroon giving things to Southern Cameroons back in the first place? Even at the level of the federation, two equal states came onto that table. Here is someone who says he's from Mankon going to beg a would-be, in quote, president for a two-state federation.
No, he's asking
I got it. No, he's begging. That's but implicitly
two-state federation.
Yes, implicitly that's what he's begging. But the point is this: Mr. Maurice Kamto or whoever does not have any moral ground to define who Southern Cameroonians are. We've defined who we are. He has no grounds, no moral grounds to define the status of our political, economic, and liberal value. No,
his methodology is that all Cameroonians, Anglophones first, on a table, we decide this is what we want, and then all Cameroonians now come on the board and discuss on the issue, considering that today Cameroon is, there's only one Cameroon, the Republic of Cameroon today. There was La République and of course Southern Cameroons before, but now after reunification and all what happened, we have one Cameroon. So that is his methodology. The Anglophones first on the question of the form of the state, and according to the speaker, the person who asked the question, Anglophones will want nothing other than or less than a two-state federal system.
Yeah, before I address that, let him, Mr. Kamto, remember who gave his people and himself refuge in the late 90s. Southern Cameroons did that. So again, his methodology is his business, and he can apply that anywhere he wants, except on the people of Southern Cameroon. And when I see actions like this, it reminds me of a verse or some verses in the book of Matthew 7:15-18. It said, beware of false prophet, for they come like sheep, but they are actually ravenous wolves. From their fruit you shall know them. Can figs be gotten from thorns, or can thistles come from, or can grapes come from thistles? No way. From their fruits, the Bible repeats again, you should know them, and any battle who does not produce should be cut off. If the regime of Aijo and Bia has cost us what we have lost already, what makes any Southern Cameroonian think Mr. Kamto will give him better? And look at even the methodology. A professor of law comes and he's trying to ignore history. History is the bedrock of law. He comes and he's trying to ignore it. And I see all this audacity comes because the guy played some role during the Bakassi case between the Cameroons, in quote, and of course Nigeria. But the Green Treaty of 2006 states clearly that countries that are involved in that case should fall back to their boundaries that they obtained upon independence. He should go and check that out and tell me where his country belongs. I'm talking to Professor Maurice Kamto now. I've challenged him online openly on fair debates. Perhaps he teaches me and school me on those things if I'm wrong. But there's one information I have for him. I'm still waiting for people like him to sit face to face with me on a table and tell me when and how Southern Cameroons became a territory of La République du Cameroon that they can now apply, like you said, his methodology on the people who have died. And to Southern Cameroonians who still beg and always want to receive. They begged for that one, by the way, they were given special status. Now they are begging for something else. Why don't they think they can also give? Why are they always standing at this wing of reception? And when you stand cap in hand to receive, you receive anything that you get. And
Professor Willie Brodzingwa told me in one of the editions of the Inside that nobody can define anything and give to Anglophone Cameroonians, that they themselves need to define what they want and give it to themselves, not coming from anywhere, referring to the spatial status and indicating that it will likely not meet the aspirations of the people because it has not been defined by the people, it has been defined elsewhere and handed over to the people. But there have been consultations, meetings, the Prime Minister talking with Anglophone Cameroonian leaders and so on and so forth before all of these things are happening now. ABDULKARIM Ali, let us talk about something else now. The municipal and legislative elections took place on the 9th of February, and there was voting in some parts of Anglophone Cameroon, some urban centers, and there was also voting in some places. Some authorities traveled in armored cars to vote in Kambe, to vote in Batibo, to vote in some areas in southwest Cameroon, and so on. What's your take about all of these, the unfolding of the elections and the crisis?
Well, I think I will spend seconds on that. There was no, that there was no election in the southern Cameroon. Nowhere in the world do people go for elections with armored cars and so on. And then after on, you see a woman who claims to be a rector in a university, if I'm referring to, shouting upon victory that and there is money. Is that an election? So spare me with that. But let's go back to this campus thing. You just mentioned Professor
Willie Brodzingwa.
Yes, a professor I respect, except for the fact that he too, as a historian, has reduced us to a linguistic entity by referring to us as Anglophones all the time, even when he makes good reports like this. And of course, you said the Prime Minister of the Republic of Cameroon has been talking to Anglophones.
The Prime Minister of Cameroon.
Of
the Republic of Cameroon.
So what is it in French? I hope you know the Republic of Cameroon. It is in no document in the United Nations. It is La République du Cameroun. It has never changed. La République du Cameroun. That's the name of the country.
Yes, that has not changed in UN books, but we have one Cameroon.
Even in the Constitution
the Republic of Cameroon,
which is La République du Cameroun, right?
Go ahead, please.
Good. So he's been talking to Anglophones, like the brother who is begging for 2 states. Of course, the only time solutions would surface is when he start talking to Southern Cameroonians. And this is what the international community has been asking them to do. Engage the Southern Cameroonians. Unfortunately, like you said, they prefer to call us terrorists now. But if whatever they call us, those are the people to engage with. If you want truth, if you're honest, you can't be discussing to solve a problem, an external problem, between you and yourself. You need to get the external party and discuss these issues with. So, when you get in bed with government, the disease that the government have, you cannot avoid the spread of it. Mr. Kamto, of course, he slept in bed with this government. He had some, I think, a minor ministerial post, something like that. And the worst thing, when I say he has done some diminishing, career-ending, embarrassing statements, why did I say that? That's something hard to say on a man like him. But he told a lie. Dikuntasang brought out a paper debunking a lie that Professor Kamto said. He said he had not sat and spoken with Sissoko and Co. But we are told that he met 4 of them. Why do you want to tell lies? And then he comes to, he's not even trying to spin history. I appreciate when someone wants to spin it, but he's trying to bury history. So, I think this is something that has to be ironed on the table. I'm looking forward to the day he will accept the challenge on a fair debate on these claims that they have on the Southern Cameroons, on the British Southern Cameroons. And my argument, I've already brought it out. If anybody can crack it, when and how the Southern Cameroons become a territory of French Cameroon. If you can crack that, I'll repent immediately. It's simple. I don't have any argument hidden anywhere. That is a simple question, and my argument is based on treaties. The only thing that keeps international diplomacy, international relationship, are courts. Treaties, those are the things that seal these things. So someone wants to bury it because he thinks he has them. And the reason is because our brothers are helping him. You know, they are begging, cap in hand, begging for two-state federation from a man who gave refugee camps for free. When Southern Cameroons gave refugee camps to La République du Cameroon, they did not owe La République du Cameroon anything. Not a single thing.
ABDULKARIM Ali, you said there was no election in in the northwest and southwest regions of the country on the 9th of February, when the Minister of Territorial Administration, Atanganji Paul, said there was massive turnout in all the 360 subdivisions of the country, including the 2 regions. And there are figures streaming into our studios indicating a kind of massive boycott of the elections, which did not take place in many parts of the 2 Anglophone regions. And people like Kabangwala, aged national president of the CPP, appreciating the Cameroonians, the Northwesterners, Southwesterners, and all other Cameroonians who stayed in their houses on election day, and indicating that it was a strong political statement that not only the people of the Northwest and Southwest, but the rest of the country fed off with this regime, angry and disappointed with this regime, and other persons called it a confirmation of the partition of the country, considering the fact that, according to them, the vote of the people of the Northwest and Southwest regions of the country was not considered before, during, and even after the elections.
Yeah, let me begin by Kawala.
Go on, please.
Maybe her political career could be gratified by that, but let her know that we are not dying for them to achieve any political stance with the Republic of Cameroon. And for you to quote Nji Paul in the Southern Cameroon crisis is like quoting Hitler on Judaism. This is a man who said there's no Anglophone problem then. This is a man who said they don't need humanitarian aid. So he has lied consecutively, and then you quote him. There was no election in the Southern Cameroons. I was there was no elections. Period.
ABDULKARIM Ali, before we go, a last word for the people back home in the Northwest and Southwest regions of the country.
Yeah, I just want to ask our people to continue enduring and praying. All we've got now is our God. That's what we've always had. Let's pray for our people who are being killed, and let's stay safe. And God has a plan, and God knows what is happening. He knows our pain. My heartfelt condolences to the people of Southern Cameroon, particularly the people of Donga-Mantung County and Tumbo precisely.
ABDULKARIM Ali, Muslim scholar of the Christian Bible, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for this edition of The Insight.
Équinoxe Télévision,